What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the latest edition of the Sunbelt Syndicate and the first live show with our new co-host, Zach Capps. And I guess we're still calling it the Round Ball Roundup. I tasked Zach with coming up with a cooler name because he's younger and hipper than I am. So we'll see if he eventually comes up with something. But for now, we'll still roll with what the old guy came up with to start with. And we already had Ben James jumping in, so I know he's been excited for the basketball show to start up. He's a Red Wolves fan, if you can't tell from the logo down there, Zach. So he's got a lot of things to be excited for this year. But let's start off with you, Zach. You want to do a little introduction about who you are, where you're at?
Yeah, so my name's Zach. I'm in college now. I go to Coast Carolina, and like I said in the previous show, but I don't know how many people heard it. I'm a college basketball guy. I grew up in Indiana, and when I got down here, I saw that there wasn't much coverage or love for Sunbelt basketball, and it's a good, fun league that is not being shown enough, and I'm just trying to help that out.
Yep, and helping out he is. If you aren't already following Sunbelt Report, it's not right? It's just Sunbelt Report on Twitter or X, if you're calling it. But he does some great stuff. He's tweeting out who's committing where. He's got score updates. He's got power rankings, which we'll go over tonight. So just be aware of all the coverage he's providing there on his own. And then we're going to try and team up and bring you guys some shows along the way. Hopefully this first one's kind of an intro for all of us because we know there's a lot to take in with football kind of still going on and basketball just starting up. So we are going to go through some of the stuff tonight and see where that gets us. So again, Round Ball Roundup, the name of the show for now. And we'll see if that sticks and continues as we move on. See if we get into this next one. What we'll cover tonight, okay? So we're going to put up all the scores that have happened thus far. We are not going to talk about each and every single game as they happen thus far. I'm going to let Zach roll off some of the things that stuck out to him in some of those games. We're going to go over Zach's power rankings. Actually, the order there is probably going to be switched, but we'll also touch on some of the leaders across the stats so far. And again, it's very early. There's probably a lot of movement to be involved in this, but we will mention those who are sticking out in this early part of the season, just 2 or 3 games in for most teams. Has anybody, I guess there's been a couple teams that played 4. Is that right?
Well, ULM's playing their 5th right now.
Jeez, that's crazy.
But yeah, I think there's like 1 or 2 teams that played 4. Everyone else has played 3, I think.
Okay, that makes sense. Pretty fair across the board, I guess. Some of those teams got some kind of preseason tournament stuff in, but not too much of that. The biggest thing that we have is the first thing that we'll talk about that's up on screen now between the Sunbelt and MAC Challenge. These MAC teams are kind of regionally more closely to where you were from originally. Do you have any known history or anything that sticks out about some of these MAC teams to you traditionally or this year specifically?
Well, originally I was going to go to Ball State originally. And then my friend, he was going to be my roommate. And then like last second, he decided he wanted to go play college baseball. So he went somewhere else. So I was like, now I kind of don't want to go to Ball State anymore. So I ended up down here, but yeah.
Nice.
I don't know about any of the other schools on there.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was, obviously you said Indiana. It's not really MAC territory necessarily, but it's not too far, I guess. So didn't know if there was just some history or some program that stuck out a lot. Thanks to Seth, who jumps on the football show from time to time and says, "Take the stairs," which is a tagline shared between App State and Troy, of all places. So interesting there. We'll get to this one. Ben's saying Red Wolves hung in with number 2 Alabama this past Friday. They absolutely did. That was a pretty exciting one. Unfortunately, we couldn't spring the upset, but, it is what it is there. So is there a specific game maybe stuck out to you more, or maybe 2 or 3 games that stuck out to you a little bit more in this Sunbelt MAC Challenge to help open up the season?
First, I would start with the App State-Miami, Ohio game. I think just the recent history of App State, everyone kind of expected them to go in there and get a good quality win at home. And Jaleel Beaubrun got hurt early, and then they kind of just fell apart in the second half. So, I mean, that kind of stuck out to me because I don't know if Miami's supposed to be that good, but mean, it didn't not much promise, especially in the second half from App State.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with you. Like you said, is it Jamal or Jaleel?
Jaleel.
Jaleel, yeah. Okay, Jaleel getting hurt was a big. I mean, he's a huge presence, right? Like he was very noticeable size wise compared to most of the other players on his own team and on Miami's team as well. So him getting hurt was not good. He did come back in that one, for those wondering. But yeah, obviously, I think he's had his hand taped up pretty heavily in that one. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Coach Curran said before the season they will not be the shot blocking team they were last season, and that's very evident thus far. They do have C.J. Huntley back down there and Jaleel, who will help out in those regards. But that first one, like you said, that second half was not very strong. And they were favored by, I think a handful of points at least to take that one. And then, like you said, they dropped that one early on. All right, so let's talk about that one below it for sure, because I know you checked out all of that one, a 60-56 win for Coastal Carolina over Western Michigan. What are your thoughts there on your new look Coastal Carolina Chanticleers?
I mean, I'm kind of still a little bit on the fence about them. I think they'll definitely be better than they were last year and 2 years ago, but they can play some defense, but they need someone to step up and help on the offensive end. I mean, they got Rashid Jones, who's been lights out through 3 games, but other than him, it's just they've had no help. So their defense is going to keep them in a bunch of games, but I don't know. They're going to have a second and third option on offense to help win those.
Makes sense. I think there's, like you said, a lot of promise. We'll talk about one of the other games that Coastal looked pretty good in here just last night, actually, of all times. And it was right down the street, like I said before the show to Zach. I would have tried to maybe get over there had it not been a night where we already programmed the Wednesday night football show. So that was unfortunate timing that, of course, Coastal comes to me kind of locally, and I've already got something that I had committed to. But Ben James telling us the Red Wolves just had their largest crowd since 2017 when they played Arkansas Little Rock. Zach, are you aware? I know that's probably before your time. You aware Little Rock used to be a part of this conference for basketball?
Yeah, they were in my freshman year.
Oh, okay. So you just caught that last year.
Yep.
They were pretty good when they were in here, actually. So I don't love to lose like programs that could help the conference in basketball, but I do like to have like the whole kit or assembly that's going to have all teams across all sports. Essentially, I know there's some wacky ones with soccer and some of the ones that don't have full roster of teams competing, but I do like the fact that now that we've got football, basketball, and baseball with a complete set of the same teams for each season that they're going into. And Ben also noting that A-State has Nelson close to return. And yeah, I guess he's yet to take the floor this season, right?
Nope. He still hasn't played yet.
Gotcha. And he's also saying Akron and A-State was just to set the tone for the Red Wolves. Well, set the tone they did, but that one was an exciting overtime game. It looked to me, I don't know how much of that one you saw towards the end. I got to tune into a lot of that one towards the end. It looked like Arkansas State should have held on and won that one in regulation and kind of let it get away to get to that overtime in general, right?
Yeah. I mean, I went to the Coastal game and then I came home and I caught the second half to a lot of these like closer games like Central Michigan, South Alabama, Akron, Arkansas State, Buffalo, ODU. And then I went back and watched the first half of a lot of the games. But yeah, Arkansas State, I had them number one in my preseason. I still have them number one. I mean, I think they're a really good team. I mean, we're going to talk about another game that they played earlier or later, I should say. But yeah, it was a good, exciting game. They probably should have, like you said, won in regulation. But I mean, they still got the win. Another thing I would say is with the Sunbelt MAC Challenge is they did a good job of like matching the level of like competition or like the level of the teams. Like the teams that were picked towards the top of the MAC were placed against teams that were picked towards the top of the Sun Belt, and then all the way through the middle to the bottom. And I think that created a bunch of good matchups.
Yeah, it definitely did. As you can see, the scores just mostly very close, like you said. I mean, you don't have a whole lot of games that got away. You do have Texas State easily disposing of Eastern Michigan. They're 64-44. That's probably the biggest disparity there across the board. I think that's the one that's sticking out the most. And for those that are watching this bottom right part of the screen, the Marshall game where they just crushed, what was the name of that school? Davis and Elkins. I'm not even sure where that's at. They easily took care of them 90-57. Then ULM beat champion Christian 111-61. Those two games, pretty obviously, I think, are not part of the Sun Belt MAC Challenge, but they did happen on that same day. So I did want to include them on this same one. So Toledo was a pretty strong MAC team. Troy's been very strong traditionally, 3+ seasons of 20 wins for Detroit Trojans. They take down Toledo by 10 points. Are you impressed with what Troy's done so far this season?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm impressed because I kind of expected Troy to be a good team. And at this point, under Scott Cross, they're always going to be competing for the top of the Sun Belt. So, yeah, like you said, it's a good win against a really good team, but it wasn't like super surprising to me.
Yeah, I guess that's true. And James Madison, are you maybe surprised that they started off pretty well, at least in that first game, or was that kind of expected for you two to get that victory over Ohio?
Yeah, I would say that was pretty expected as well, because I think James Madison's once again going to be right towards the top of the Sun Belt, but we'll get into later. But I think there's a couple games that they played later, or at least the Norfolk State one, that was pretty disappointing. But I think I saw someone in one of the comments of one of my posts say that they think James Madison has a higher ceiling than they did last year, which is interesting. I don't know about that. I mean, they have really good talent, but I mean, I guess we'll just have to see how a new coach and a completely new team gels over the course of the season, and then we can make that assumption as we get on towards the end of the season. But
yeah, you say interesting, I say insane if you tell me that they have a higher ceiling than 4 losses all season, including their tournament bid. I mean, that's
I guess what they're meaning is I don't know if they mean just 4 losses in general, because when there's a new coach and a completely new team, there's obviously going to be some growing pains, and you're going to drop a few games early, like several of these teams with new coaches. But I think they mean when they're playing at their best, if they put last year's team at their complete best versus this year's team at their complete best, they think that this year's team would win. I think that's what they're trying to say.
Okay. That makes a little more sense. I'd still question it a little bit because I still think that team last year was very, very good. Besides a couple matchup problems that they seem to have with App State. I mean, again, that one team handed them 2 of their losses. So kind of insane that happened in that regard. Just a couple more games I want to touch on real quick before we move on. Kent State takes down the Cajuns 70-66, and we'll talk about maybe some of the struggles the Cajuns have seen so far this season as we go further along. Georgia Southern starts out hot. I think we both had Georgia Southern predicted to have a pretty good year this year, right?
Yeah, I have them as my sleeper team that maybe by the end of the season we look up and they win the conference or win the conference tournament, and I wouldn't be completely shocked at all, but no one's really talking about them. Yeah,
no, I agree with you. I think they had some promise last year, a lot of close games, brought in some talent, and got a new stadium to play in. So there you go. 80-65, they win over Northern Illinois. Okay, let's jump over to the next set. This one includes 4 days worth of games. Again, I'm not going to speak about every single one of them. Unfortunately, LSU takes down ULM pretty easily, 95-60. It looks like ULM's got a little bit of a slate. Like you said, they're already playing their 5th game tonight as we speak now, or is it already started, right?
It should be over by now.
Okay, I think. It started earlier.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Started at 7:30, I think.
Oh, okay. So it was earlier than I thought. All right. I mean, App State then takes down, I don't even know what the name of that school was. I have to look at that one, actually.
I think it's St. Andrews.
There you go. St. Andrews. That logo is just a little too small. No problem there. They rebound after that MAC loss pretty easily, but that would obviously you're not going to get a whole lot of vanity points for a win like that over a program like that. South Alabama goes up against UAB. I don't know much about the UAB program. Are you any kind of aware of how good these Blazers should be or could be this year?
They were picked to finish first in the American this year. They have this guy named Yaxel Landborg, I think is his name, and he's like a projected potentially first-round pick.
Okay.
And then they have Tyron Moore, who was a big-time scorer for Georgia Southern last year. He comes off their bench.
Oh, I knew he'd left. I did not realize he was at UAB. I'll be honest. See, this is why we bring in the expert Zach to tell us about stuff that we all don't remember off the top of our head. Artie is celebrating Texas State's big win over McMurray, 102-62. Yeah, again, just like the App State win, you guys and App State are expected to win those ones big and comfortable. So glad to see that one happen there. And the Cajuns do the same thing against University of Dallas, I think is what it's called. Or is it University of Texas at Dallas? I'm not sure how they say their name. Okay. I've never even heard of that school, to be totally honest. I've never seen that logo before. To me, it does not look like a school logo. It looks like a company's logo more than anything else. Just kind of one of those weird ones. But yeah, let's talk about this one. I know you took in quite a bit of number 2 Alabama struggling a bit with the team that's expected to take our conference in Arkansas State. 88-79 Bama wins, but is that a respectable loss as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, Alabama going to be one of the best teams in terms of quality and depth in the whole country this year. And they went up against Arkansas State, who is coached by Brian Hodgson, who was a longtime Nate Oates assistant. He knows Nate Oates and that team better than probably anyone in the country. So you knew that he could potentially give them some troubles. Alabama was terrible from 3. Like, they couldn't hit a shot. Both sides got to the foul line a ton. I think Arkansas State potentially finished with a better average from the free throw line, so that kind of might have kept them in. But, yeah, no Isaiah Nelson, like we said. So losing 9 to potentially the best team in the country without your preseason all-conference center is a good loss.
Yeah, and you are correct. They just, barely edged out the free throw percentage. A-State 63.9 and Alabama was 63.6. But again, little small margins.
The refs were calling everything in that game. I think like Alabama had like a guy get like 3 or 4 fouls in the first half, and like both sides, they like several games. Yeah, like you said, both teams had a couple players foul out in that game. And there was a bunch more people with 3 and 4. So. Jeez.
Yeah, well, but that's a great showing. Obviously, you'd love to have that kind of victory, but like you said, when you're missing one of your best players too, that's pretty impressive, especially on the road there in Bama as well. UNCW is a traditionally pretty good basketball school. As we know, they don't have football, so they kind of hark on their basketball. Georgia Southern went in there and gave them a test, 92-84. What's their mascot? The no, not the Pelicans.
Seahawks.
That's it. Yeah, I think you're right. Seahawks. And I outlined their logo in white. It looks kind of ugly there, but if I don't outline it in white with this like maroonish background, you could not tell what that was. So I tried to do them a favor so we could actually see which one that was. Impressed again with what Georgia Southern did against a team that's pretty traditionally up there and is a mid-major on the bubble or shoe-in for NCAA tournament bids.
Yeah, I mean they had a late lead or a lead late in that game, and they kind of just let it slip away from them. I mean, I wish it wasn't on Flow Hoops. If you know, Flow Hoops just Flow Sports is so expensive, and I'm not paying all that to watch 1 or 2 games. So I wish it was on something else so I could watch it. But I kept up with it. Georgia Southern has 2 guys coming off their bench, Dante Holloman and Bradley Douglas, who are just absolutely balling. Kind of remind me last year. Kentucky had Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham, both top 10 picks, come off the bench and both be like their 2 best players, their 2 leading scorers. And that's kind of what Georgia Southern is doing this year, which is interesting. I'm not saying they're as good as Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham, obviously, but
right.
They have their 2 like spark plugs, their 2 guys that will get them a bucket anytime, just come off the bench.
No, I definitely know what you mean. I knew what you meant. I knew we weren't looking at the talent level necessarily, but like you said, the same tools. They possess the same tools for what their team needs at that moment. So pretty good to see there. Any more of those on Friday night stick out to you? I mean, were you maybe expecting Georgia State to play Mississippi State a little closer? That one kind of stuck out to me as like, I don't know if I expected it to get out of hand with 101-66 being the final there.
I would say kind of expected that game to be a bit of a blowout. I was surprised about South Alabama beating Nichols on the road. I think coming off their game, I think it was against Central Michigan, their first game at home, and they got down like 22 in the second half, and they came back and they almost won. It was just too little, too late. And I was kind of impressed that they went in there and they pretty much controlled the entire game and got a good solid win on the road.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think both of us had predicted South Alabama probably struggle a little bit this year, but maybe we're wrong. We'll have to see how that plays out. Okay, and then the Saturday games. This one was really out of hand. Number 10, Arizona, goes for 102 points and holds ODU under the 50 mark. Monarchs only come away with 44 points. Obviously, we're not really shocked that there was a large disparity. Maybe you thought maybe it'd be a little closer, though. I don't know. I mean, we knew ODU was going to struggle with a new coach and a new system to run with some new players as well. But I was a little shocked that it got that out of hand, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't expect them to only score 44 points. I mean, that's pretty bad. But they didn't have Rob Davis, who's their leading scorer in game one. He didn't play in that game. So I mean, Arizona's a good team. I said they probably have one of the better offenses, and that was proven was scoring 102 points. But I thought ODU might score a little bit more, but wasn't like too crazy to me.
Yeah, it looked like Caesar was their leading scorer with just 12 points. I say just. It's not a terrible outcome against the number 10 team in the country, especially if you can kind of spread that kind of point total throughout your entire roster. But unfortunately, that did not happen for that one there. So Marshall, for whatever reason, has yet to participate in the Sun Belt MAC Challenge. I think there's some kind of aspect of the fact they used to be in the MAC, so maybe they kind of already have a lot of these matchups. Here's one here where they go up against Toledo, but come away with a 10-point loss. I don't know. Who did I could probably just jump back one time. Who did Toledo lose to in that first game? That was Troy. Okay. Are you surprised Marshall wasn't a little bit better in this one against a historic foe for them?
I mean, yes and no. Toledo, like we said earlier, Toledo's a really good team that finishes towards the top of a really good MAC conference every year. But Marshall, I think Jalen Spear returned that game, but he didn't play much coming off a preseason injury. He's a guy who averaged a lot of points at Florida A&M, I think, and a guy that they thought was going to be like a big-time player for them, and he's just not fully healthy yet. And then Dezane Mingo came back from an injury, came off the bench and was probably their best player. But, I wasn't like super surprised that they lost to Toledo, but it would have been nice to see him win, obviously.
Yeah. Like you said, Spear came back, goes 0 for 5 from the field. So definitely some early struggles while he continues to get healthy. It's a good note on that one. And one of your preseason thoughts to be probably a decent contributor was, there's actually two Nutters in the conference. Was Ryan Nutter from Marshall the one you're talking about, or was that the Nutter from Georgia State?
Oh, yeah. No, the one that I thought was going to be a big-time piece was the one at Georgia State.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure, because I'm getting confused. Those guys it's kind of a stranger last name for me to hear, and there's two guys in the conference who happen to have it, so it's a kind of an interesting aspect there. Before we go to that last set of scores, James Madison drops that one, like you said earlier, to Norfolk State, and it wasn't really all that close, 83-69. I mean, Norfolk State now is 3-0 on the season after that one, so it's not like they're a bad team. But I guess I'm surprised, Jam, you didn't compete a little bit better in that game.
Yeah, Jamie just got off to a slow start offensively and then couldn't battle back.
Yeah, we will move on to the last set of games here. App State gets walloped by Wisconsin on Sunday, 87-56. Only an early lead was the bright spot for App State in that one. I don't know. I'm probably a little surprised Wisconsin's not ranked with what they've kind of done historically and how they've been so far this season. I'm guessing it's probably like strength of schedule up to this point that their 3-0 record doesn't really mean much. Is that maybe what I'm looking at there?
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, a lot of their better players have transferred or graduated or whatever, so they were picked towards the bottom of the Big Ten. So just off of preseason like presumptions that it's just going to be harder for them to get in versus like, let's just say like Purdue, like they start off 3-0. They're obviously going to be ranked because they were picked towards the top of the Big Ten, but Wisconsin picked towards the middle to the bottom. Even though they're 3-0, it's still going to be a while before they get ranked unless they beat some good teams.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Then on Monday night, Georgia Southern and Marshall both pick up. What's a little bit surprising as far as both of these games go. I mean, these are, I believe, both NAIA or Division II schools here, right? No,
Southern Indiana is the D1 school.
Oh, okay. Is that are they newer to D1?
Not that I know of. As far as they've been D1 as long as I can at least remember.
Okay. Interesting. I guess that happens when regionality wise, we don't really see them much. Are they traditionally decent then? Does that, that score 77-63 look pretty good?
They're usually like average, I would say, but they were up 3 at DePaul with like 2 seconds left. And Jacob Meyer, who was transferred from Coastal, hit a 3 to send it to overtime. Then DePaul won in overtime. And then they lost to a from what I heard, is a decent Bucknell team in game 2 and another close game. So, that's a good win that's a solid win for Marshall.
Okay. Yeah. So again, this is why we have you here, Zach, because these types of things that piece it all together and makes it make more sense, especially when, me as an outsider from a lot of basketball history didn't even know, Southern Indiana was a D1 school in that regard. So good update there for me and probably some other people who probably have not heard of Southern Indiana thus far. Ben James, just to interject here, said, will there be women's basketball? I think I want to see if we can get into a groove here with men's, if we can kind of get to a quick run through and we got a lot extra time sometimes. Definitely want to at least loop in some leaders statistically in the standings and whatnot. I don't know if we'll go kind of more in depth. It's just too much to keep up with. Taking in all of this as is on the men's side alone is enough. But he did want to mention that the basketball team for A-State, the women's side, picked up a Power 4 victory over Arizona State for the first time since 2017 when they played Florida. So absolutely congrats to them on that. I know that women's side is a little bit tougher, honestly, to step up and beat some of those major teams than it is probably on the men's side. And then Red Wolves, he's mentioning, got a rivalry win, 80-63 over Little Rock here on, what was that, Tuesday night, so 2 nights ago. And again, as Zach said, they were leaving the conference a year after he joined Coastal as a student. But yeah, historically pretty good team down there in Little Rock. So for Arizona, A-State to win that one 80-63 looks pretty impressive. Any other scores here really stick out to you? I mean, South Alabama stays relatively close with number 25 Ole Miss, which I watched enough of that game to tell you that I do not think Ole Miss should be a ranked basketball team, but maybe they just had a bad game.
Yeah, I think they probably just had like a more of a down game, I would say. Okay. But yeah, I was impressed with South Alabama. I mean, Miles Corey is a guy that I didn't expect much of coming into this because he came from like I don't know if it was D2 or JUCO or whatever, but he's been phenomenal, both scoring the ball and getting his teammates involved. And kind of like all these, like, not all of them, but a lot of these Sunbelt versus high major games have all kind of played out very similar, like the Arkansas State, Alabama, and then this Ole Miss game, the NC State Coastal game, Arkansas Troy, where like the high major team gets off to like a good start, and then Sunbelt team slowly calls their way back, and then the Power 5 team goes on another run, and then Sunbelt team just slowly calls their way back and just hangs in there. And it was a good showing from South Alabama once again right after winning at Nicholls State. Yeah,
no doubt about that one there. And I think we were live last night on the football show, and I think someone said, was Troy? Yeah, Troy was up 1 point, 27-26 at the half against Arkansas. Again, ranked team at number 18 currently. Speak on this other one, though. Houston hammers the Cajuns 91-45, and Houston Cougars are number 8 ranked team. How far did they advance in the tournament last year? You remember off the top of your head? They Elite 8?
Yeah, I think so. Elite 8, maybe.
Okay. And I think that sounds about right.
They usually make it to like the Elite 8 every year and somehow find a way to lose in the Elite 8. or Sweet 16, right around there.
Yeah. Traditionally, just a really strong team. So again, a loss doesn't necessarily surprise me, but the fact that this was 91-45 with a Cajun team that I thought, well, we knew that the injury was going to have some effects, unfortunately, for Katinge there, but I don't know. I still expected a closer score than this lopsided 91-45 and a pretty good struggle for Louisiana as they get off to just a 1-2 start to their season here.
Yeah, I'm not like super surprised. Houston's a good physical defensive team, and then when they get it going offensively, they're tough to beat by any team in the country. So, I mean, not really surprised. It's kind of like the Arizona game. Maybe surprised that Louisiana only scored 45, but Houston's just that much of a monster on the defensive end that it's not like too shocking to me.
Okay, makes sense. All right, now you got to tell us, man. NC State is not what they were last year. That's obvious. They lost quite a bit, but they still are a team that just went off of a Final Four appearance. Well, actually, were they in the championship game, or was it just the Final Four? I can't remember.
They got blown out in the Final Four by Purdue. That's
right. Okay. But Coastal travels up to Raleigh. Not a long trip for them. They take on NC State, and I'll ask your opinion on this because I saw a lot of Coastal fans talking about the foul calls by the ACC officials in that one and kind of getting a little one-sided, maybe is what the way I'll describe it. Is that kind of your thought, or you thought it was pretty well called? And also just talk to us about, a 12-point loss to a team like NC State.
I mean, there's obviously always going to be some iffy calls in every game. It's just a matter of who the fouls are called on. But, yeah, I was impressed by Coastal just hanging in there. They were down 2 at half, and then NC State pulled away to start the second half, and then Coastal, like I said, they just called their way back and just kind of hung around for the rest of the game. But, yeah, I thought Coastal was good defensively, especially in that second half, or the first half, I mean. And Rasheed Jones is just a baller. And if Coastal wants to win, they're going to need someone to help him out scoring the ball. Because, like I said, they can play some defense, but he needs some help scoring the ball. I know they were high on Jordan Battle coming into the year, and he just hasn't shot the ball well. D.A. Houston was their starting point guard, transfer from Longwood, played a bunch of games for a team that went to the tournament. He's been out with like a lingering ankle injury. They expected him to be back for this game, but he wasn't. He'll probably be back this weekend, if I had to guess. Okay. And then Braden McVicker, who's a 7-foot shooter who was maybe their second or third best player in the conference last year for Coastal. He's redshirting, which shocked me a lot. I thought in the ECU game they could have used him a ton just because ECU was playing 4 guards and like a 6'6", 6'7" wing. And him being 6'11", can shoot the ball, is mobile. Like I thought putting him in there would be a major benefit, but Coach Gray wants him to put on some weight and get stronger, which tells me he wants him to play center. Right. He doesn't want him to play the 4, which, like I said, I think is a good move because he's 7 foot. He can step out and shoot. He's not the strongest guy or the bulkiest guy, but he can hold his own at least a little bit. Kind of like I remember Chet Holmgren a few years ago in the tournament.
Yep.
He played Jalen Duren, and I was like, oh, Jalen Duren's going to bully this dude. Yeah. And Chet just, he held his own. He's like giving up 75 pounds, but he's still stuck in there tough. And I thought Braden McVicker was similar. Not the physically strong guy, but he can hold his own. But yeah, missing 2 starters, barely losing to ECU, and then hanging in there with NC State is something impressive for Coastal fans.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of Coastal fans are agreeing with you because I've seen a lot of people say, we've lost 2, but these games are showing promise. So the eye test is really impressive and better than what you guys have been seeing here lately. So that's exciting for people down there in that Conway area as we continue along. So those are all the games except for ULM that have happened so far this season. So again, we didn't talk about every single one of them. We tried to hit some of the major ones along the way. Some upcoming games. So we've got a lot of games the rest of this week that really aren't big ones to mark on the calendar necessarily, to be honest. Should either win those games easily or maybe struggle against some better teams. But these games on Sunday are the three that are going to highlight what we think is coming up that's going to be pretty good. Two of them are on ESPN Plus. One does happen to be on the Big Ten Plus. I'm not sure if that means you'll have to pay for that one.
Yeah,
not.
It is. It's like It's like $12 a month, but yeah, it's kind of you could probably find it somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. Honestly, if you're a Troy fan and you don't want to travel out to Oregon to see it, then $12 maybe a steal. I don't know if about me and you paying $12 when we already pay some for ESPN Plus should get us most of these games. But Georgia Southern takes on William and Mary. Both teams 2-1. Not necessarily going into that one. They'll probably have a game or two each before this one happens. But right now they are 2-1 going into that Rock Hill Classic. So should be a good matchup there and really test where Georgia Southern is. William and Mary, again, is one of those high mid-majors, aren't they?
I mean, they haven't been that good recently, but I think
not recently.
They just hired a new coach, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken. So I think they have maybe a little bit of promise this year.
Gotcha. And, for those that are watching instead of listening, there is Braden McVicker there shooting from outside the arc. Again, probably could have enlarged that picture a bit. But that's him getting one off over, I think that's an A-State matchup in the tournament, if I can not mistaken.
Looks like, I think that's Louisiana.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think you're right now that I'm
Brandon Hardy, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it says Hardy on the back.
Gotcha. He probably made that shot. McVicker probably made that shot. Then Jacksonville State against your team, Coastal Carolina. I think that one should be an interesting matchup with what Jacksonville State's put together so far this year and what Coastal's been doing. Yeah, the record of 1-2, nothing to write home about as far as standing out to anybody, but one of these matchups that's probably going to be closer than a lot of people think, if not Coastal being able to edge out the Gamecocks there in that one. I don't know. Is that one a home game?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Okay. Going to that one? You're going to be going to most of the Coastal home games, right?
Yeah, except for the ones over winter break. But
yeah,
that's like, I think I'm going to miss like 2 or 3 of them. But other than that, I should be at every game if I can.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, and then that last one is the kind of nightcap there on Sunday, which has Troy traveling out to Oregon, who is certain undefeated right now. I have no idea who they've played, but they are 3-0 team at this point. And again, Troy historically putting up 20-win seasons, be a good matchup in all likelihood there in that one. Okay, so those are some of the games. Now we're going to get to the leaders, and we've heard some of these names come out of your mouth already, Zach. But here are the leaders. Again, some teams have only played 3 games. Some teams have played as many as 5, but there isn't going to be anybody on any of these lists from ULM. And the scoring leader thus far is Robert Davis Jr. from ODU. And like you said, he even missed a game at one point, right?
Yeah, I'm looking at the list of leading scorers. He doesn't pop up in the top 50 at all. So I don't know if that's just because he hasn't played it. He's only played in like 2 games compared to – I'm looking at ESPN, but it has –
oh, okay. I'm using the Sunbelt website for just the Sunbelt player. So I'm saying he leads the conference. I'm sorry. I guess I should have made that clear to you and the people watching and tuning in.
Yeah. I mean, I went on ESPN and looked up Sunbelt player stats, and then you can sort by conference. I went to Sunbelt, and it doesn't have him at all, but maybe that's just because he missed a game and all these other guys haven't.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like they have like a minimum threshold before they'll list somebody
played or something. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's true. It would skew it for sure.
It says to qualify, a player must play in 75% of their games, and he's only played in 66 because he's played in 2 out of 3.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. And so to kind of counteract that, if you did eliminate him and a player who has played more, your current leader, so to speak, if you're going by the ESPN rankings, would be Xavier Brown from James Madison, who, Zach, you had talked about before the season started as kind of being that kind of guy, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked that – I kind of thought Mark Freeman, transfer from Morehead State, came over with Coach Spradlin. I thought he was going to be that guy just because he averaged like 15 to 17 a game. Pretty much his whole career. I think he's averaging like 14 or 15 a game throughout his career. and he had interest from like Memphis. I think he took a visit to Memphis. He chose James Madison, has familiarity with Coach Spradlin, so I kind of thought he was going to be the guy. But I mean, Xavier Brown kind of stepping up, coming back right from where he left, come back right from where he left off, because he had that big game, the Sunbelt Championship game, had a decent tournament, and then he's picking up right where he left off.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another player you were talking about before that you've seen plenty of so far is Rasheed Jones from Coastal Carolina, who'd be coming in. And just to say, Robert Davis Jr. on the screen now, 20-point average for those two games. Xavier Brown is sitting at a 17.7-point average, and Rasheed would come in at 17.3. So, again, a really close race. Once Robert Davis plays a couple more games, then we're going to see if his point total continues to shake out the way it is. And since you already talked about Rasheed, we'll jump on to the rebounding aspect too. Nick McMullen from Georgia State leading the way thus far with an 11 rebound per game average. Looks like Rashad Marshall at Arkansas State is actually in second place there with 10 averaged per game. And both, actually the top three guys have all played at least 3 games, with Elijah Everett Hutchins from JMU coming in just under that 10-point threshold with 8.3, rounding out that top 3 so far for rebounders in the conference. Anybody there sticking out to you? Anybody maybe surprising, or maybe surprising that they're not up there?
I mean, based off of the preseason stats and what I heard in the preseason, I thought Elijah Hutchins Everett would kind of be like a walking double-double. I mean, 8.3 is still good, but I kind of expected him to be the rebound leader in the conference. But I mean, Georgia State plays a fast pace, and they want to speed up the other team when they're on defense, and then they want to play fast on offense. So there's gonna be a lot of chances for rebounds when you're playing with them. So it doesn't surprise me that a big man from them are up there.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Do you know how, off the top of your head, you know how big McMullen is?
Oh,
is approaching
6'8" or 6'9".
Okay. Interesting. I was thinking maybe he might be closer to 7 feet, but still pretty good size.
He's a power forward.
Okay, yeah. Sometimes I feel like those power forwards are just a lot more athletic than those bigger guys, right? Like, because they're not kind of lengthy. They're kind of built a little bit more like a wide receiver as far as athletic ability goes. Like, they can jump out the gym, but also can be a little physical and get up there and get towards the rim for those rebounds. And I do want to say this too. Like, how many times have I looked at stuff, and like Robert Davis is a perfect example here. He's still got his A10 jersey on, from last season. They haven't updated any of these things. We'll see another one in the next one that hasn't been updated. Then they got Miles Corey over here from South Devon. They cut his arms off in his picture. Like, what are they doing over there?
Yeah, ESPN. I mean, yeah, it's just weird. ESPN has some of the teams updated, some of the teams not updated. So sometimes they have like half the team updated, half the team not updated. Man, it's just a mess. But
yeah, especially
usually after the first month, they're fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say the early part of the season, they're probably still off playing catch up with what they've got to cover as far as football goes as well, too. All right. Again, another name that you've already talked about because he's stuck out. But the leader in assist at this point is Miles Corey from South Alabama with an average of 8 per game. Rounding out the top 3, you've got Andre Curbelo, my preseason pick for player of the year in the Sun Belt, over at Southern Miss with an average of 7 a game. And then another name that you shouted out in our preseason preview is Tayton Connerway from Troy, who comes in with 6 per game. So 8, 7, 6, right down the board, 1, 2, 3, as far as players within the conference are concerned. And if you're checking ESPN, are any of our guys really up there in the top of like the nation for anything just yet?
I don't. I sorted it to Sunbelt only, but
gotcha. Okay.
I would assume Miles Corey is towards, I wouldn't say like top 5 or anything, but he's probably up there. And then Nick McMullen averaging 11 rebounds a game, he's probably up there too.
Nice. Okay. Well, that is the first of 2 slides, I guess we could call them, for some of the leaders. We've also got the leader in field goal percentage at this point. Another name that's going to stick out to people that have been paying attention to this conference is Jackson Fields from Troy, who's .682 and 15 of 22 from the field so far this season. And I can pick up who the other guys are in that regard. We've got Nate Martin from Marshall coming in second at .679, 19 of 28. And then Anthony Gordon from Southern Miss. I trying to say that too fast. I'm just going to stumble over it, as you could hear there. Anyway, comes in at 6.30% and 17 of 27. I guess probably not surprised that Jackson Field may lead the way there, right?
Yeah. I mean, ESPN has Noah Amenhauser at number 1, 71%. But
okay.
Yeah, it's not shocking that the big men are up towards the top just because they're back to the basket. They're getting the little 5-foot hook shots and the layups and everything, while the guards are shooting the 30-footer. So it doesn't shock me that it's primarily big men towards the top.
Interesting. I'm not even seeing him on the Sunbelt list here. Strange. Anyways, guy again, once again appearing here, Rashid Jones, 3-point percentage leading the way for Coastal thus far, unless you got something different from ESPN.
No, Rashid Jones. I don't know if you saw the shot that he made in the NC State game. I'll send you the video, but he hit one from like half court. It was absurd. And it was like a big one because NC State had gone on a little run. And they played like really good defense for like 28 seconds. They forced him all the way back to half court, and he just launched it from half court and banged it in. But yeah,
was that in the second half or was that the first half?
It was in the first half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah, definitely send me that video. I want to see that. I'm sure Zach's been sharing some video clips too along the way on X again. Great follow. If you want to keep up with Sunbelt basketball and you just want somebody to put it in front of you and make it a little easier to take in, this is your guy. That's why I found him, because he was doing a great job of all this. Want to get him an outlet to help get his stuff out there and seen more often. I guess we can go through some of the other leaders up there. Robert Davis Jr., again, only played 2 games, but his percentage thus far is pretty good. And Drew Drennan from Texas State, a name that you had mentioned in the preseason preview, doing pretty well as well. I'll throw one more in there because of how they're performing thus far. Judah Brown for South Alabama, shooting a pretty good percentage from 3-point range as well. He has the second most made field goals or 3-point field goals per game in the Sun Belt as of right now as well. Blocks, we've got Denijay Harris, who's returning to Southern Miss after a year away. And again, this is another one of those ones ESPN's got wrong, is he's still in his Arkansas uniform there, but he's returning to Southern Miss and averaging 3 blocks per game thus far, followed by my guy that I picked from ODU to be one of the better defensive players in the conference, which is Caleb Swanton Roger, which is like I don't know how his name fits on his jersey. I haven't seen it thus far. I wonder if they put it in like back to back or it fits all the way across. Have you seen it?
I think I watched a little bit of the game out. I think it was just normal, just straight across. Okay. I didn't see it. Wasn't like a big, huge, like jump out at you thing.
Gotcha. Okay. I just figured it's one of those longer names that you see on the back of a jersey, and sometimes I've seen them put the dash and then the other part below it just because it's going to look a little bit better.
Or they like go around the numbers.
Oh, yep.
Just 'cause it's so long.
Yeah. Oh, man, that wouldn't surprise me at all. And then Luke Wilson from App State, who was a redshirt player last year for the Mountaineers, has jumped up. I guess I just didn't really notice how big he was. Yeah.
And he was even bigger before he slimmed down a little bit too.
Yeah, I heard that. He lost some weight in the offseason to maybe, I guess, become a little more athletic or a little faster. But yeah, he is a big dude. Probably not quite as big as the kid they had last year in the center there. But yeah. Oh, I haven't tuned in to see if he's doing anything for Georgia. Are you aware if he's playing for Georgia at all?
No, yeah, I saw some I saw some tweet by some App State fan that was like, the grass isn't always greener, and he's like barely playing at Georgia. And some App State fans were kind of getting on him a little bit for leaving.
Yeah. Abson, that's his name. There you go.
Yeah, Abson.
Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and bash anybody, but I was surprised that a program like that picked him up because I didn't know if the athletic ability was there. I mean, he's a big dude. He could stand there and block shots. I never was really all that blown away with the offensive side of his game.
Well,
so
it's always just good depth too. Like if they're going down, if they lose a center, like, I mean, to have him as like your third center is like a great option.
True. It's disappointing when he could have been on a team if he stayed at App or something kind of same mid-major level that maybe could have paid him or whatever reason he was that left.
You can't fault him for taking the money.
No, definitely not, because
especially when you might not have a career in the NBA. And I mean, in terms of in Europe, they don't pay that much, so get as much money as you can.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's just interesting that you wouldn't stay somewhere where your name's going to be. I mean, he was literally the national shot blocking leader at the end of the season last year too, wasn't he?
He was up there. I think, top 3 or something.
Yeah, so interesting that you would leave for that. But like you said, if it's a money aspect, no, definitely cannot blame him because there's no promise of NBA in the future for most of these guys. And this, unfortunately, is a little hard to read, but the good news is you included logos, so we'll go with those and focus on that. These are your power rankings so far. I'm going to let you take it from here. You can start at the bottom or start at the top, wherever you want to go.
Yeah, so I'll start with Arkansas State. I mean, I had them number 1 preseason, left them there. They beat an Akron team that was picked towards the top of the MAC, and then they hung around with one of the best teams in the country. So I can't move them, even though they had a loss, can't move them. And this is from the 4th through the 10th. So my rankings will come out every Monday.
Gotcha.
And so Troy, I have Troy second. Like I said, beat 2 Division I schools, a Toledo team that's, like we said, usually plays towards the top of the MAC. And I was impressed by him in both games. James Madison, I moved them down 1 from my preseason. There's like a trending section right there where you can like show like how if they're moving up or moving down. But I kind of just I threw this together last second, so I couldn't get that together. But I moved them down 1 just because. I was disappointed in their road loss to Norfolk State. Georgia Southern, they stayed at 4. I thought. Yeah, I was impressed by them both at UNC Wilmington and then at home. I thought, like I said, they were up for a lot of that game in UNC Wilmington, which is a really good mid-major program in a hostile environment, and they just let one go late. Texas State, they beat a pretty bad, mid to bad Eastern Michigan team, and then they beat up on a NAIA or a D2. I don't even know what that is. McMurray is, but
I don't know.
I mean, they're 2-0. You could have them over Georgia Southern, but like I said, I think that loss at UNC Wilmington was a little bit more impressive than beating up on a lower level school.
Agreed.
Southern Miss, I moved down from my preseason rankings. They were decent against Bowling Green, but they were really bad against UAB. Like,
shockingly bad, right?
Yeah, Curbelo didn't dress, like he was a last minute scratch and just didn't play. And then they started the game, it was like 26-0 or something to start the game. They had like close to 10 turnovers at the under 4 timeout. Like it was bad. And then, they were a good second half, but it was just too much to come back from. I have Coastal 7 a lot higher than what I have them in preseason, but like I said, I've been really impressed with their defense. Their defense is, I'm pretty confident saying it's going to finish top of the Sun Belt this year. Justin Gray's teams have always finished at the top of their conference in defense. It's just going to be a matter to what their offense can do, but they're missing a few guys, and if they get those guys back, then we'll see how it goes. Louisiana, a little disappointed in that Kent State loss, but they bounced back and had a decent win against UT Dallas. Georgia State, decent win against Ball State at home. They snuck one out there, but then they got absolutely obliterated by Mississippi State. Mm-hmm. So kind of kept them there. South Alabama, I had them towards the bottom of like the conference, but like I said, I was impressed with them. The second half against Central Michigan, where they almost came back and won that thing, and then winning at Nichols was impressive. App State, that moved them down a lot from where I originally had them in preseason. Yeah,
you did have them. You did have them falling off a little bit, though, right?
Yeah,
App
I still
State?
had them like 7th or 8th, I think.
Yeah,
but they lost Jaleel Bobron and they just fell apart. And then they beat up on St. Andrews, which was expected, and then they go to Wisconsin. Start off the first like 10 to 15 minutes good, and then straight downhill from there. But yeah, nothing really impressing from them so far. Marshall, I had them down a little bit too, just because they haven't beat a Division I opponent versus like South Alabama. They won at Nichols. I mean, Marshall probably a better team than South Alabama, but like I said, I can't. It's kind of hard to put them above them just because they haven't won a Division I game. I mean, you can say that about a few other of these schools, but it also comes down to like where I had them ranked in preseason. Like, I'm not going to fault a team. I'm not going to drop a team from 3 to 14 just because they haven't beat a Division I school, and someone in 14th has beat a Division I school by 1, and I like it's kind of just whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, Old Dominion, they lost on a heartbreaker to Buffalo, and then obliterated by Arizona, and then ULM, they beat up on a champion Christian, and then got destroyed in their next two. And like my preseason rankings, I think they're the worst team in the conference, at least right now.
Yeah, my preseason for ULM is going to be way wrong in all likelihood. I think I just took a waiver. I just said there was going to be one team that surprises you. I think you said you had at Georgia Southern, which I had at 5 preseason wise too. I have ULM at 6, which looks really awful right now.
Yeah, kind of went chalk a little bit, but
yeah,
except for Georgia Southern, I might have had a little bit higher than most people. But other than that, it kind of went chalk, what everyone expected. But
yeah,
we'll see
I just
how it
thought
plays
maybe ULM had that head coaching position on lock. They brought in some pieces from different areas of the world, literally. Maybe they come together and be this like ragtag team of misfits from all over, and they just, pull a little Mighty Ducks and then, get together and just be a really good team somehow when no one expects them to. They could still do that, but it's not the greatest start for them thus far.
It's also going to be hard to win. Just, I always say this when people want to talk about like the environment of the home arenas, like they're like, well, if you want the team to win, or if you want us to show up, your team has to win. But it can also work. It also can work the opposite way. Like being there, having the support also helps the team win, and it helps people want to choose to go there. Like there's like freshmen or seniors in high school. They'll go visit ULM. And maybe it's a better fit, and that would be a massive pickup for ULM. But they go there, and there's like a couple hundred people there, and it's just dead quiet. And they're like, why would I want to come here? And then they go to App State, and like I said, maybe it's not a good fit, but they see the student section rocking and see the place go crazy, and they're like, oh, I want to be a part of this. So I've always had that. Everyone, especially when it comes to Coast Carolina basketball, they're like, oh, I'm not showing up because we're not good. Well, maybe if you showed up, they'd be a little better.
Well, and also if you show up, like, you might surprisingly have a good time, right? Like, you can still go do other stuff afterward. It's a college town. There's still going to be people awake partying and doing other fun stuff. Like, go to the game first. Yeah,
and I mean, like I said, like in terms of like at the moment, it might not they might not be good, but it also helps when like recruiting kids and stuff like that. Like better environments usually bring in better talent. But I went on a long tangent just to say that ULM is not good and their home environment's is kind of trash, but hopefully that will improve soon.
They got that old school. What do you think of that? It's like that them bowl. And Southern Miss right now have that old school bowl that like just looks, I don't know.
I like it. Like Purdue has it, and I'm a Purdue guy. So Purdue has it, And obviously they pack that thing out. They've sold I think they have like a national record for most sellouts, and that thing's always bumping. But what I like about them is behind the benches or on the sidelines where it's like that empty court, they put like a bunch of like seats and chairs there, so it doesn't look as empty or as boring or whatever. So I think even if no one sits in them, it just makes it look a little better if like ULM or Southern Miss does that.
Yeah, I also feel like you probably experienced this being at games at Purdue. Like if it's crowded and it's loud, it's really loud. It looks like one of those stadiums that would be insanely loud if you packed it out and people got hyped in there.
Oh yeah, those bowl arenas are definitely louder than anything else. Because like my friend, he not a Purdue fan, and me and my friend that's at Purdue, we're always like trying to get him come to Purdue, like, and he's always talking crap, and he's like, oh, it's not that good of an environment, blah blah blah, this that. Well, he got free tickets to go to a game the other day, so he went, and I texted him, I was like, so how was the game? And he's like, I didn't know it could get that loud in there. I was like, and he's like, now I want to go back. And he's not even a Purdue fan. He does not like Purdue, but he wants to go back just because the environment in those types of arenas can get electric if everyone's in there. And we've seen that at Southern Miss last year or 2 years ago. Like the places can get rocking.
Yeah, they absolutely can. So hopefully they can continue to bring that aspect. And my ULM thing doesn't look as bad. I mean, they won 110-48 tonight. I just double checked over some school I probably can't pronounce and certainly have never heard of. Well, how did you say it?
I'm not going to pronounce that either. They played six guys though.
It looks like a woman's name, like as Celsia or something. I don't know. Anyway, good times. I'm going to put this back up on the stage again for those of you who want to follow Zach more closely and continue to tune into this. Follow him at Sunbelt Report, all smashed in together on Twitter or X. We are at Sunbelt Syndicate. Actually, on Twitter X, the E is one letter too long, so you don't actually need it. But if you want to follow on any other socials, Sunbelt Syndicate, pretty much everywhere. We're on that blue sky thing now too. I don't know if that is blowing up on college campuses, Zach, or kids not care about that.
I joined it like when it first came out, and it was just like it was supposed to be like maybe the more family friendly version of Twitter and like the safer version of Twitter. And then I got on there, and it was just I was like, this is way too boring for me. Like I kind of like seeing the drama sometimes on Twitter. Yeah,
like I understand people's thought process of like, what could happen to Twitter? What could it become? Elon's going to make you pay for it. But
it's fun on there.
There's so many people to interact with and follow, and that does not exist on that blue sky. Although I'm just hearing like they had like 1 million people sign up today.
Oh yeah, I've seen like the last few days, like there's been a bunch of people on my Twitter feeds have been saying like, hey, go follow me on Blue Sky, or like Blue Sky's crashing because we're all joining or something. But like, yeah, I joined it when it first came out, like when you needed like a referral code to get on there. I joined it and I got on there, and it was just like, I was like, I feel like I'm like on Twitter, like when it first came out, like 15 years ago or whatever. And it's just like, what is this?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I will say this, it's like a clean looking app. There's not a whole bunch of junk so far. I haven't had
kind of like Threads by Instagram. I don't know if you've joined that, but like I joined that, and it was just like, yeah, this is kind of just like the Walmart version of Twitter. I was like, I'm not going to do this.
It's like you said, there's just no interaction. Like I'll go post the same things I post everywhere else, Facebook, X, and probably those two are the top two by a wide margin as far as interaction and people, interacting with whatever it is I post, whether it's a video or a graphic of some sort. But everywhere else is kind of whack. Even Instagram for me, I don't know. But if you guys want to follow Sunbelt Syndicate on Instagram, I usually share all the graphics there too. So whatever. If it's out there, I'm a part of it just so that it can be said that we've got full coverage going on, and hopefully we can continue that with the basketball aspect of things. Zach, is there anything you want to leave us with before we wrap up this first live episode with you?
No, not really. Season's just now starting, but it's only gonna get more exciting from here. I mean, A lot of good games this weekend, and then going forward, more good games, and then we get into conference play, which is where it's at. So excited to see how some of these teams play in the coming weeks.
Yeah. Certainly interested in that as well. I'm going to throw this out there. Maybe you can say whether you agree with it or not. If some people want to have stuff for us question wise to go over something specific, throw us a DM and we'll get it on the show. For those of you who maybe can't tune in live when we do it, you can hear it on the audio aspect. I will be editing that as soon as we get done with this here. So if that's something Zach's open to, maybe you can hit him up in the DMs. You can certainly hit me up and I can share that question with Zach. Again, he's more of the expert when it comes to the basketball. So we'll make sure someone who actually knows what they're talking about a little bit more answers that. And as I will continue to try and watch more and more basketball throughout the way, so I can chime in a little more as well. But with that being said, again, Sunbelt Report on Twitter, Sunbelt Syndicate as well. And we will bring back at you hopefully sometime next week and continue basketball coverage for the Sunbelt Conference. See you guys later.
Syndicate.